she really reference you and I in this? Hi, welcome. My name is Angelina and you're watching an episode of Why It's Familiar. Or rather, Why It's Not Familiar. Who really knows the title at this point? Sometimes you gotta switch it up to avoid getting murdered. This is basically my series where we take a look into specific comebacks, look at why it's familiar, why it's not familiar, look at the parallels we can find between this works of art and maybe other works of art within this world. But also what makes it stands out, my thoughts on the styling, on the music video, and honestly everything in between. And Rosé, or Rosie from Blackpink, has just released her much anticipated solo with On the Ground. The playing with fire references, the bomb references, we've got a lot to look into today, but before we get started, don't forget to like, comment, and share this video with friends you don't have, lest this channel dies faster than my previously established projections. Little disclaimer, because a lot of people take issue with the title familiar. Well, some people. Just because something is similar, just because something can be parallel to something else doesn't mean that it's inherently bad, doesn't mean that it's plagiarism, doesn't mean any of that. Some people think it's really interesting to look into these things. Some people think it's incredibly annoying. I personally live off of this. I love pointing out similarities. I love looking into similarities. And the truth is, most of these similarities or parallels comes from Blackpink's previous line of work. Previous works? We're not here for an English lesson. But no one really listens to these disclaimers anyways, which is why I got 18 canceled last time in my review. So I don't have very high expectations anymore. Okay, so this music video opens up with the scene of what seems like a rocket shooting down from the sky, which later we see ends up hitting a car. And I think this kind of plays with the idea of the lyrics that we hear later on in the song. What goes up must come down. But then we cut to a white car that is on fire, which actually reminds me of two music videos in particular. The first one being Playing with Fire, because of the overall presence of fire. And I think we could actually see a few parallels with Playing with Fire, to be honest with you, not just the fire, but the presence of things like these signs as well. In Playing with Fire, we can see Rosé hugging someone in front of a similar sign with fire. And then if we fast forward to On the Ground quite a few years later, we see she's alone in front of a similar type of sign, but instead of just plain fire, we have a lot of sparks going on. Which I think later ties into the lyrics as well of, kind of finding what you need within yourself or finding what you need already around you, not having to go out and look for it, perhaps in other things or within other people. And the second music video this scene kind of reminds me of is definitely Jennie's solo, which also featured a white car, though we don't see the text, Not Even a Distant Memory. But what really gets me, what I think is really a scene that is very much so similar, that was very much recreated with purpose in my opinion, is this car scene with the swing and the fire and the theater in the background. So she's just swinging along while shit is like on fire behind her. Feels oddly familiar within our own personal lives, probably. However, I feel like this scene was perfectly recreated from Blackpink's music video for Stay. Now, if you go and look at the music video, you're going to see Jisoo is on a swing as well. She's also in front of a movie theater, and instead of the car being on fire, we see kind of this pink stuff shooting out from it. So I think these scenes really parallel each other super well. Another reference I really wanted to point out is, of course, from As If It's Your Last. So in As If It's Your Last, you see Rosé spelling out her name on the mirror. And she does so in Lipstick, which we also see in On the Ground. She spells out Rosé. But then we see that this scene cuts to Roseanne. So we see that difference between, her kind of stage name and then her real name, which might actually represent some type of conflict between her, who she is off stage, and her stage persona, who people think she is, since we actually don't see her reflection anymore when it says Roseanne compared to when it says Rosé, which in and of itself might represent a part of her being left behind. And we'll get into this a little bit later with the lyrics, but I think this is perfectly paralleled with the line, "Look at me, I'm never coming down." It's kind of like she's putting herself on this pedestal. I've reached my goals. Her head is literally in the clouds. But it might not be the best place to be, which is why the entirety of the song she kind of emphasizes why everything she needed is on the ground. But of course, we need to move on to the more nitpicky parallels, the ones that will surely annoy people. The first parallel is definitely like every single YG Girl Group music video ever, having someone longingly look out a car window. I mean, I should probably stop there. We also have this very interesting scene where she's kind of on like the stairway to heaven, as it seems. I have a very perfect 80s meme for this situation. If I can find it, I'm gonna insert it here. But her hat definitely gave me just gonna pack up my things and move on from this mess. But this is a good transition to the lyrics because this scene in particular I think is really interesting. As we can see, it says, "Roses are dead, love is fake." I thought that was very intriguing because to me, it kind of seems like she's trying to say this isn't a love song. You know, my friend sent me some screenshots from the premiere and she doesn't really mention much about love, but more about, you know, finding things within yourself. To me, this is her kind of saying this isn't a love song, but then when we're looking into the lyrics, you know, there is a mention of another person. And I thought it seems a little like odd that, you know, this isn't necessarily a love song, love is dead, but then she is kind of mentioning, you know, every minute I spend without you is a minute I regret type of thing. So it seems quite contradicting, right? But I was thinking maybe it's actually towards herself, right? The person she's talking to is actually herself. And this is kind of reflected in the music video as well when she's seen on a piano and then she's kind of guiding herself on the piano. That's what it looks like within the scene. There's a part of her, and she kind of makes mention of this as well, past self, present self, and all of that stuff. But from what I got from the lyrics, it's kind of like there's a part of her whose head was in the clouds, who got affected by the fame, who was kind of, you know, in that bubble. And then a part of her who might have still been down to earth, and she's kind of talking to that down to earth person. Every single minute I'm without you, I regret it. So maybe that's how it could be interpreted and not necessarily a love song. Maybe I should be a philosopher. Damn. There is one line in particular I did want to talk about. She says, "I used to have a hole in the wall with a mattress." It really confused me because I find, you know, a line like this holds a lot of weight and a lot of representation, if that makes sense. It paints a very specific picture of kind of like a lower class person kind of making their way up to the top and then realizing everything they needed was on the ground. You know, without getting into a super heated conversation about the rich and how we should
fucking eat them,
because you know I really want to. Cue the fat jokes, but I don't care. But even at that, I just don't think that really translates in the way that it's gonna be interpreted. I just don't think it quite translates to what it's supposed to relate to. And I was a bit taken aback by that part, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how to explain this. It's kind of like this rags to riches type of picture that is painting. It just really kind of surprised me because I'm not really sure exactly like what she means by that. Like, is she trying to portray this rags to riches type of story, or does it have like some other meaning that I'm not quite getting here? But I would love to know what do you think she means by, like, what does she mean by that? I'd love to know how you personally interpreted that line, because in my head it makes it seem like, you know, she was sleeping on a mattress, like on the floor, like a very poor living situation with like a hole in the wall that like she couldn't afford to fix. Like, it paints a very explicit picture in explicit, is that the right word? It paints a very vivid picture in my opinion. And I don't know if that's what she meant, if that's what she's trying to paint. It also seems that the "Look at Me, I'm Never Coming Down" is in reference to previous Blackpink songs. So as we know, they've referenced that in the past with Playing with Fire, look at me now, and How You Like That, Look at You Now, Look at Me. So that's interesting as well. And of course, they had a boom you and I reference when Rosie says, and I quote, "You and I." Now, the haters are going to say that's a stretch, and frankly, I don't care. But lastly, I did want to mention something about the melody. This is something that was really bothering me. That every day, every night part I thought sounded super familiar. Then I went into my comment section and someone pointed out that it sounds like Taylor Swift's Blank Space, which kind of touches on the fact that some people have said that this definitely gives them Taylor Swift vibes, and I don't disagree.
Every day, every night, I'm dying to see how this one ends.
Especially with that one reference, like every day, every night, and then Taylor Swift's Blank Space. I will try to play them side by side, but I don't think that's going to be possible. I did want to take a moment to talk both about the styling and the visuals of the music video, because I was definitely amazed at some of that stuff. Like, some of that styling, okay, first of all, this white feather outfit, 100% cockatoo chic vibes, and I'm not mad at it. She chose my favorite parrot. Now, I do not think the stylist was kind of in their design room kind of thinking, what kind of cockatooity am I going to evoke in this outfit? But that's the vibe I'm getting, and I'm just gonna kind of run with it. She looks angelic. She looks like she could actually make a hole in your wall, if you know what I mean. And I have to say, this obnoxious jacket material, we saw a little bit of this in the show. I thought her outfit was the most stunning, the most obnoxious, probably uncomfortable as hell. You know, in practical, But this jacket, the use of this jacket material to me is really interesting. I think it's very innovative. I loved it. Her hands were hidden. It looked like she had no hands. I didn't mind it. Did not bother me because I loved the whole shape of it. You know, you have very bulky on top, and then just the way her shorts were kind of cut off fit her in a way that just, honestly, perfection. Despite that, I really liked those two outfits in particular. Despite that, I feel like the styling didn't really take center stage. Now, I've seen a lot of people say that the music video was very beautiful, but that it wasn't really cohesive and it didn't really make the most sense. And at first glance, I totally agree. When I first watched it, I was like, well, it feels a little empty. It feels like there's not really a storyline and I'm not really getting what she's trying to put out. But then, you know, as I started looking into it and I showed you guys all of the parallels that I could find, I was like, oh, you know, this is actually filled with so much symbolism. So I would have loved maybe a little bit more of a storyline, but I also do appreciate like being able to find this stuff, even though maybe some of it is a stretch. But of course, there are super beautiful scenes. There's definitely no doubt about that. But another thing that I liked that I mentioned earlier on is that she didn't really make use of anyone else in the music video except for herself, and like very, you know, explicitly just herself. So if we contrast that with Playing with Fire, where there was a type of love interest, she ends up hugging this guy. In this music video, she is kind of her own love interest. You know, she finds herself proverbially. But in terms of my thoughts on the songs, I know, you know, I usually make you guys wait to my end of the month reviews, but I'm going to spoil it a little. So to be honest with you, it was not love at first sight. It's definitely not my cup of tea right now. I am going to let my thoughts simmer a little bit more, but I feel like a lot of people are like, this isn't what I was expecting. I feel like people were kind of expecting a Blackpink song, right? If we refer back to Solo could seem like a Blackpink song. It's very catchy. It's very Blackpink-like in nature. Whereas Rosie's song doesn't feel like that. And I can't say that I was expecting a Blackpink sounding song. I was expecting a little bit, and I feel like that's where in my predictions video, this is what I got right, where it's gonna be a little bit more indie, it's gonna be a little bit more Rosie type song where it's not like Blackpink, but we'll still have some of those Blackpink elements to make it more easily digestible. So we have kind of a little bit of a beat drop, we kind of have this more pop element mixed with what I think is the direction she probably would have liked a little bit more to go in. I know she took part in production and everything, but I do still think at the end of the day, the company has the final say, and the company has the final say in what kind of direction you should be going. For example, a lot of people are saying that Gone should have been the title track, that Gone really represents her a lot better than On the Ground. And I have to say that I agree, especially if you see Gone being performed live. Like, I absolutely fell in love. Even if the song wasn't, you know, perfectly my cup of tea the first time I heard it, that performance absolutely made it everything that it was. You know, it was raw, it was emotional, it was absolutely beautiful, and I think it represented her perfectly. And I think that's her direction, but at the same time, from an entertainment point of view, I think it's maybe a little bit less digestible compared to On the Ground, which is a little bit fluffier. But I think YG Entertainment got kind of the opposite results. They picked something that was more digestible, but people are a lot more critical of it. But that's just what I think, because I would have loved, and this is kind of my biggest critique, I would have loved to hear her voice more. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, she's singing throughout the entirety of the song. But did we really hear her voice? Did we really hear, you know, that Rosé voice that we've come to love? I feel like her singing style was a little bit different. So no, I wasn't expecting this super pop Blackpink sound, but I was expecting this more like indie sound, you know? She covered a song from like all of her song covers that she has been releasing, I was expecting something along those lines. Something that shows her voice front and center. But I think that was a little bit overshadowed by the fact that maybe the company wanted a beat drop, a slight beat drop. And I can't stress this enough. I'm very proud of her for taking part in production, for, you know, putting her heart and soul into a work of art that people can enjoy. And my criticisms absolutely do not mean that it's bad, that it sounds bad, that it is bad, that people cannot enjoy it. These are just how I feel initially right now. So please don't misunderstand. But yes, those are my thoughts as of right now. I will share more of my thoughts as they simmer at my end of the month review. But yeah, that is basically it for this video. Thank you so much if you made it to this point. If you did, my watch time thanks you. You can also join my channel members by clicking the join button next to the subscribe button. These are the lovely individuals who help support my channel on a monthly basis. It means the world to me. But alas, I must go, so I will see you guys next time. Don't forget to leave down in the comments below what you thought of this song, what you think of her two songs, Gone and On the Ground. But yeah, bye! And Rosé, or... oh, that didn't work.